The Essence of Meditation. Chapter 2, Doing Nothing. Doing nothing, or effortlessness, is a Taoist concept that originated in China more than 2,000 years ago. Inspired by that concept, many Chinese people have found the true meaning of their day-to-day lives, and many ancient emperors have used the concept as a secret weapon for ruling their countries. But what exactly is meant by doing nothing, or effortlessness? A well-accepted interpretation is that human behavior should obey the laws of nature, or the Tao, as Laozi stated in his book, Tao Te Ching. In other words, very few people will literally interpret it as doing nothing. But is it true that nothing in this world can be done without doing anything? On the one hand, the answer is no, because at least one thing can be done by doing nothing, and that is meditation. On the other hand, it is most likely that the ancient sages derived that counterintuitive idea from meditation and applied it to other fields such as everyday life and politics. But before we examine how meditation involves doing nothing, let's look at how the human body works. Physical human activities can be divided into two major categories: 1, those that are controlled by consciousness, such as thinking or moving the limbs, and 2, those that do not require conscious control, such as the lungs breathing, the heart beating, and other automatic functions of the internal organs. In fact, the so-called automatic functions are also controlled by the brain, but by a different part of the brain. We may as well call these two parts of the brain the conscious brain and the unconscious brain, respectively. When people are awake, the body is controlled by both the conscious brain and the unconscious brain. But because the conscious brain is so dominant, you often fail to be aware of the unconscious brain. That domination by the conscious brain can be called the effort world. But after you fall asleep, you lose consciousness, and the body is completely taken over by the unconscious brain. Domination by the unconscious brain can be called the effortless world. Note that effortless here only refers to the inaction of the conscious brain, because at the same time, the unconscious brain starts working at full capacity, dropping heart rate, lowering blood pressure, slowing down breathing, paralyzing limbs, relaxing muscles, generating the growth hormone, renewing skin cells, repairing immune cells, consolidating memory, and so on. However, because you lose consciousness after you fall asleep, you are unable during sleep to be aware of any of these changes. As I pointed out in the previous chapter, the essence of meditation is to let the body fall asleep while keeping the mind awake. That is to say, the only difference between meditation and sleep is that you lose consciousness during sleep, but you remain conscious during meditation. Because of that, meditation gives you the opportunity to experience the magical world of effortlessness. However, while you remain conscious during meditation, you must exclude any control over your body by the conscious brain, because once consciousness is involved in any bodily activity, even a little bit, that will immediately take you back to the world of effort. One special bodily activity that can be controlled by both the conscious brain and the unconscious brain is breathing. In other words, you can control how fast and how slow you are inhaling and exhaling. But when you don't pay attention to your breathing, it doesn't stop. In fact, it will adjust itself to different situations without any problem. Because of that, ancient peoples treated breathing as a bridge from the effort world to the effortless world and came up with a meditation technique called observing breathing. That technique can work splendidly, but beginners often make the mistake of using it without knowing how to observe breathing correctly. When you are not observing your breathing, everything is going well. But once you start observing your breathing, your conscious brain will try to take over control, for example, by adjusting the length of the breath or even the intervals between inhaling and exhaling. That will cause more and more chaos, until you reach a point where you can't breathe at all and must start all over again. So, what is the right way to observe your breathing? It's very simple. You just need to observe your breathing as a bystander. In other words, regardless of whether your current breathing is fast or slow, long or short, your conscious brain does not intervene. You must trust that your unconscious brain can take care of your breathing by itself, just as it takes care of the automatic functions of other internal organs in your body. As a matter of fact, so long as your conscious brain does not interfere, everything will run perfectly under the control of your unconscious brain alone. Another common misconception for most beginners is that meditation involves emptying your mind, so that you should not be thinking at all during meditation. In fact, both controlled thinking and forcing oneself not to think are attempts to use the conscious brain to control the mind. And the purpose of meditation is to let your conscious brain give up all control over your body and your mind. As a result, both controlled thinking and forcing oneself not to think are the opposite of the goal of meditation. So, should you think or not during meditation? The answer is yes and no. It sounds contradictory, but it is very simple to achieve. Just like observing your breathing, you need to observe your own thinking from the perspective of a bystander, so that the thoughts in your mind can come and go freely. Never try to stop any thought from coming out, and at the same time, don't let your mind follow any thought. Just observe it. In fact, as the body falls deeper and deeper into sleep, you will have fewer and fewer thoughts, and you will eventually reach a state where there are no thoughts at all. But that is the automatic result of meditation, not the intended goal of meditation, so don't get them confused. So far, we have seen at least 3 different meditation techniques. We just talked about 2 of them, observing breathing and observing thoughts. We also talked about observing bodily sensations in the previous chapter. Besides these 3 meditation techniques, there are many others. But if you look at them carefully, you will discover that most, if not all, of them have one thing in common, which is to observe something. That is not a coincidence. As a matter of fact, observing is the first step in giving up control. If we look at an interesting real-life example, that point will immediately become clear. When parents take their young children to a playground for the first few times, they tend to follow the children everywhere, whether on the slide, the swing, or the sandbox. They don't want their children to have an accident, so constant supervision is the only way they feel that everything is under their control, although it is really a tiring job after a while. When the children grow older and become more independent, the parents will not follow them anymore. Instead, they will sit on a bench outside the playground and watch their children from a distance, if still attentively. As you can see, that is the first step for the parents to give up control of their children. When the children grow even older and bigger and can take care of some of their own affairs, the parents will stop watching them constantly. In fact, they may start to look at their phones or even head to a nearby coffee shop for a quick drink. At that point, they have totally given up control of their children, letting them play freely and independently. That is the best time for both the children and the parents, because the former get out of bondage, and the latter find peace. Most importantly, the parents don't really need to do anything or make any effort to get into that win-win situation. All they need to do is trust that their children can take care of themselves. Similarly, during meditation, you don't need to make any effort. To be exact, you can't make any effort, because any effort will make you fail to cross the bridge between the effort world and the effortless world. If there is anything you need to do during meditation, it is to keep your body still, which at the end of the day is to do nothing. As for observing breathing, thinking, and bodily sensations during meditation, they are just some handy tools you can utilize on the way to the effortless world. As you saw from the example of the parents and their children, observation of breathing, thinking, and bodily sensations is the first step in giving up control of the conscious brain. As you get closer and closer to the effortless world, even observation itself needs to be abandoned, since it has become the last obstacle to entering the effortless world. Only when you put aside everything, abandoning all efforts and really doing nothing, can you go beyond your familiar effort world to enter the unknown effortless world. And only at that point will you transcend the limitations of the body and the mind to experience ultimate truth. Meditation is a long journey, with no hurry and no expectation. The only thing you should do and the only thing you can do is sit still and surrender everything to the Tao, the Dharma, the God, the unconscious brain, irrespective of what you call it.